the National Cabinet meets tomorrow.
And it looks like the result of that's pretty much shot before it even starts, with Queensland and Western Australia ruling out an agreement on hotspots. So what I can tell you, Kieran, is even under the COVID hotspot definition that is to be discussed at National Cabinet tomorrow, people might not be able to travel from Sydney to Brisbane or Sydney to Perth or Adelaide. Senior federal sources have told me that the definition being discussed today by the AHPPC, the Chief Health Officers Committee, will be calculated based on a density of cases over time in a defined region. Under this, it has been put to me, someone could travel between Brisbane and Perth without quarantine, but Sydney to Brisbane travel would be in doubt. It would depend on the rolling average of cases. Have to say at the moment, New South Wales, there's 169 active cases in a population of 7.5 million people, and yet travel from Sydney could still be excluded under this definition. No matter what the definition, it looks like it will not have much point. WA Premier Mike McGowan, short time ago, essentially said he's going to keep the hard border in place no matter what.
We're not going to agree to bring down the borders. I've made that plain to the Prime Minister. We're not going to agree. Hotspots doesn't work. It's not as effective, I'll put it that way. Hotspots is not as effective. Bringing down the borders won't work. In the West Australian context, our measures have been successful.
Now, Mark McGowan's facing an election in March, and look at this front page of the West Australian today. I don't even think it's a poll that the West has done. Some people suggested to me it might be a bit unscientific in terms of the border question, but it says now he's Mr 91%, and there's 92% support for keeping the hard border in there, so you can see why he's going the way he's going. The Queensland Chief Health Officer, Jeanette Young, she repeated again today that to open the border she would need 28 days of no community transmission from the area people were coming from. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian said if this were the test, the border would never open.
I have also heard the targets which the Queensland government is setting for when they're likely to open the border. I don't know if we'll ever get to that case, to that number. They're putting on us a pretty big ask during a pandemic, and I'll ask them to look closely at that.
Now, the Commonwealth wants to keep pushing Christmas as when the state borders should be open to allow Australian families to visit each other. You heard Scott Morrison revving it up there. Tourism Minister Simon Birmingham on the show with Kieran shortly. The government wants a plan for November 1, the day after the Queensland state election. It is a test for Scott Morrison and the states tomorrow as to whether they can come up with this hotspot definition. If they cannot, Kieran, you would have to say the National Cabinet has failed.